And I'm Sarah Jo, your host here in the Diamond Lane on Classic 107 in Winnipeg. We have our very special guest, Monsieur André Laplante, pianist extraordinaire, born in Rimouski, Quebec, studied at Juilliard after a rash of competition placings in the 70s that jump-started his career, started touring all over the world, was last in Winnipeg playing Rachmaninoff's Third Concerto with the WSO for the 2013-14 season opener, and is now in Winnipeg, about to present a solo recital tomorrow night at Eckhardt-Gramatté Hall at the University of Winnipeg as part as Virtuosi's concert series. Monsieur Laplante, bienvenue.
Thank you, merci.
You're welcome. It's such a pleasure to have you here. If you could just scoot the microphone just a little closer to you, you can move it. All right. So, Monsieur Laplante, it's a humbling experience to have you in here. As a young pianist, when I was a kid, I listened to your recordings, and they influenced my playing. There were so many. There's so many great moments of your recordings in the 80s and 90s. Fantastic stuff. You've won Juno Awards and Felix Awards, right?
Yeah, with the Jacques Etu Piano Concerto, number 2.
Amazing. Yeah. You know, you've played, because you play such a great variety of music. Can I ask you what it is that you value most in the music that you interpret, that you listen to? Is there something that...
Well, you know, I think you have to learn pretty much everything through music. I mean, you have to learn your technique through music. You have to learn everything through expression and character. I mean, you know, it's like it doesn't give you anything to be sensational, period. I mean, you know, like it's like an actor that can have a perfect articulation and can pronounce 700 words in 30 seconds, perfectly articulated, but you get out of there and you eat your breakfast the next morning and didn't do anything for you. Right. You know, you can have this kind of sensational thing. I mean, it's about character. Speaking of actors, I mean, we're doing the same thing as actors are doing, as ballet dancers are doing, as performers. Every performer, you know, you get on stage and you're trying to
evoke something.
Do your best to render justice to the works you're playing, and you really cannot do more than that. And it's also a question of what kind of instrument you're having. You have to play on, getting adapted to it. If you're more or less tired, all this and that. You know, I like a sense. Basically, I love a sense of adventure or something. I like a sense that there was enough research made that you can actually improvise what you're doing, because when you improvise, it looks very simple, but there's so much work behind, you know.
Well,
so that's the thing. Like Richter was like that. He was always been one of my heroes, because there was always a sense of adventure when he was playing. And there was always something so strong. I mean, in the character. Even sometimes he was playing music that is not necessarily perfectly, if you will, at that time, and you know, at that time, his perfect cup of tea. I mean, he was playing music, but there was always research. There was always a sense to it, and there was always something, you know, happening. It's just so fascinating. Like
that understanding of the repertoire in its place in history, in how it was conceived, but then also knowing that well enough that one can still be spontaneous in performance and still have that freshness, that adventure.
Well, you have to be. Eventually, it all comes down to character and emotions, and you know, it's all about you know, what we have, what we are as human beings. I mean, after all, we're not. You know, I'm sorry to say it like this, but I don't think we're creatures of logic so much. I mean, I think we're creatures of a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings, you know, going on, and reason the more to use your head and put order into this. But once you frame all this, you can be so incredibly free, and that's why I love music so much, because you know, you do your square work, if you will. You know, you choose, like a painter choosing his frame. You know, you choose what you want to do in there, and it's so interesting. You know, there's always a discipline, of course. You know, there's always a big discipline. There's always an immense amount of work. I mean, it's all about work, you know.
Right.
And keeping loving the art. So, you know, like Allen Ginsberg used to say, I want to go normally crazy. So you get you get a little older, a little older, and that was one of his theories, that it was a normal way to go. I always loved that because you get older. Yeah, okay, you have more experience, you have more baggage, certainly. And what are you going to do with all this time spent working and this? So you just want to really have a good time and have a better and better time, because you're really truly disciplined and you framed everything, and within that frame you're perfectly free, and there's something incredibly interesting about that.
There is. Lessons in life and music with André Laplante here in the Classic 107 studios. It absolutely is.
The same thing.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely essential that we understand that, and understanding that spontaneity and that longing for spontaneity that you have. I mean, your name has become synonymous with the interpretation of works by Liszt and Ravel, both with such exuberance and spontaneity in their music. Liszt, of course, one of the most exceptional improvisers of all time.
Absolutely.
Right. Do you improvise in your playing?
I do, but in my studio.
Right. Yeah.
No, I do. And as a matter of fact, it's funny you mentioned that, because I do some work at the Montreal Conservatoire of Music, and I suggested many times that it would be a very good idea maybe to have one class a week, if they want, maybe an hour a week. Improvisation class would be fantastic. But they used to have that at the old Moscow Conservatory, St. Petersburg, and the old Eastern Europe school.
Right.
All had it. I mean, all had some improvisation, and I think you discover so much like that. You discover so much, and it's difficult to see music the same way after, I think, because you cannot feel that. I mean, that you want to be so perfect as to play perfectly or something like that. I mean, in other words, improvisation makes you realize, I think, that the real control is letting go something. You know, instead of because I mean, after all, I mean, you're a singer. You know the drill of practicing.
Yeah.
You know, I know the drill of practicing as a pianist also, and there's a lot of isolation in the fact of being a musician, and the fact of practicing, the fact of doing all this. And sometimes we honestly we're tired and we don't hear. We don't hear sometimes what we want to do. And for me, when it gets too complicated, I have to stop a couple of days and come back to it, because really you get to a point of perfectionism or performance, because you want to be so good, and that sometimes you don't hear what you really want to work, So it's always a fine matter of balance, Like I say, some people are born with one orange and they balance it pretty well. I'm up to 10 about that. It's it's very complex, but it's interesting. Like I say, it's more and more complex. It's more and more interesting. So
this gives us a primary opportunity. May I play a little bit of something of yours, a recording of you playing a little Sherpa, and then we'll come back in just a moment and talk a little bit more. I'm Sarah Jo, you're in the Diamond Lane. If you've just joined us, we have André Laplante, Canadian concert pianist extraordinaire, about to, he's waving, he's about to perform tomorrow night at Eckhardt-Gramatté Hall, the University of Winnipeg, as part of Virtuosi's concert series. We are going to have a little Chopin Nocturne No. 1 in F major from Monsieur Laplante, a fantastic recording that he made. And then on the other side, we're going to talk about Saturday night's concert and what we can expect tomorrow night. Stay tuned. André Laplante, Chopin Nocturne No. 1 in F major, still here in the studio with us, Monsieur Laplante. Thank you for staying with us. It was such a pleasure to listen to you with you. It was nice. You kind of you drifted for a moment, and really we were just letting yourself enjoy it. It was beautiful.
Yeah, because I haven't heard that recording in a long time.
It was great.
So that was a long time ago. So
lovely. I'm so glad we could share that.
I was surprised I could do the record at all, because that was only, I think, 3 weeks after I stopped definitely smoking.
Oh,
Stopped
wow.
smoking definitely. So it was
A little jittery.
It was
It's a jittery
hard.
moment.
Yes.
Well,
It
and,
was hard to do.
and you're now still non-smoking?
I'm fine.
Okay,
yes.
good. All right.
Yeah,
Wonderful. I'm glad
fine.
you didn't start
Yes.
smoking after that was done. So speaking of Chopin and your programming and the repertoire that you do so well and so often, tell us what we can expect on tomorrow night's program. What is on the docket?
Well, we have some Liszt, we have some Ravel, especially Mozart. I like the disposition, if you will, of the rhythm of the program, because I'm starting with a big Virtuosi Adagio, part of the big toccata in C major. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Transcription Busoni. Very, very. It kind of, in the words of Pablo Casals, it kind of blesses the concert, blesses the hall. Starting with a really beautiful. It's very contemplative. It's very beautiful.
Yeah.
It's the middle movement of a big organ toccata, and as we know,
Bach,
toccatas were. The first movements usually were very improvisatory and very virtuoso, and you have this second movement that's a kind of an island of peace between a huge fugue and the first movement. So I start with that. Then there's Mozart Sonata, one of the early Mozart sonatas, 282, E flat major. And one of the very, I would say, original works of that period, because the harpsichord, clavichord was kind of going away, and the harpsichord was going away also, and they started experimenting with the first versions of the pianos that we know. So you can play with much more colors, I think, and much more
depth,
dynamics.
spectrum.
The dynamics are more present. And also what makes the sonata original also is that the first movement is slow. It starts with a slow movement.
Right.
Very, very beautiful. Then he goes to a minuet, and then he goes to very, very happy kind of naive, like only Mozart knows how to do that.
Right.
But still, you're still climbing and trying to climb to heaven all the time with him. But it's very, very beautiful work, and all said in 14, 15 minutes. I mean, a very relatively short time,
Sonata,
but all the moods and all the discourses are really, really tremendous. Then we go to Ravel, Valse Noble et Sentimentale.
Lovely.
Which is probably the work that how would I say? I think it's one of the most detailed works that I've worked on. I mean, there's so much you can do in those pieces. They're extremely lean and mean, if you will. They're written extremely classically, and it's essentially because they're very short. So it's a bit like when you play a set of variations, you have to characterize everything, the character of every waltz very, very quickly, and make a suite out of it. And he wrote this in honor of Schubert, of course. Schubert had a suite called Valse Noble and another suite called Valse Sentimentale, and Ravel kind of put the two together in the title. And it's really and harmonically it's incredibly innovative, and there's absolutely everything that you could possibly like lyrically or harmonically or rhythmically or anything. It's like everything is there. They're very orchestral. As a matter of fact, he orchestrated them later, and they're very colorful and beautiful. And then the sonatine, and then some Liszt, and then
the Beethoven
sonatine. Les Adieux. Ravel sonatine.
Ravel sonatine.
Yeah. Beethoven is Sonata Opus 81A, and Les Adieux sur le Bévol. And that's the concert.
That sounds like quite a well-rounded program.
Yeah, it's not, I like it. I like
it's potpourri-ish, but it hits some really, really great things, especially the Mozart. I feel like having a slow movement as the beginning of a Mozart is completely out of left field.
No, it's very original.
That'll be really fun. Speaking of original work, you also are a champion of the music of Canadian composer Jacques Etu.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how that happened, because for those of our listeners who are the core contemporary or the core classical, classical romantic era kind of stuff, who is Jacques Etu? Can you tell us a little bit about how you found his music?
He was, he died unfortunately, but it's all happened very many years ago. I was just playing a set of variations for piano at a recital, and he was in the hall. Oh. And he came to see me after, and then, we talked, and we said we should see each other. We had a friendship, and so, every once in a while, as much as we could, we were in contact, and we saw each other, and became really good friends, and it was very interesting to talk about any kind of music, which he had quite a universal knowledge of music, but I think with a composer's angle, of course, and analyzing a lot how it's written, but not analysis for the sake of analyzing, but I mean how it's written, how you put this together, and the expression, and all this. We did a lot. We read a lot of Schoenberg together. It was kind of nice because he saw that. We saw a bit like I saw it. We shared a lot of common ideas, and he became really a good friend. But like I say, he was so busy doing stuff, and I was so busy traveling that we didn't get to. Yeah. But I loved his music, and I played a lot of his music. And one day he just came up with the idea of writing a concerto for me, and so that's what happened. So he wrote the second piano concerto for me, and that was really wonderful. He was sending me drafts every once in a while, and I'm at this stage, and what do you think? And da 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 da. And there are quite a few winks on. To some composers, like the beginning of the piece is the first thing I was thinking about was Rachmaninoff's second concerto. Yeah. I mean, it's like there's a chord, and then kind of a swing with the bass and the top note. And I mentioned it to him and just had this big smile, and so I said, "Oh my God, are you labeling me again as a romantic?" Said kind of, but it's okay. I mean,
but that's what you're known for. I said,
of course,
That's what you're known for, is the romantic literature.
Yeah, no, it's true, but it took. Sometimes it takes a while to get out of a kind of label or something.
Totally.
I mean, it's, I do love romantic style. It's true, but now I think a few years later, I certainly can say after years of research that I can be flexible enough, to go wherever I want in music and do good stuff.
Right. And, it's also incredibly inspiring to know that still the relationships between composers and performers are still what really inspires these great commissions and these wonderful works. And those relationships, these composers finding the performers that don't necessarily that are parallel on that aesthetic ideology kind of track. Yeah. And it's so beautiful. I'm glad you found that with Jacques Etu.
Well, I mean, the thing is that Jacques was not afraid of expression either. I mean, he was a great craftsman, and he could, every note was thought, in a big scheme of things. Right. But he could do something that has truly a character. Actually, with speaking of contemporary music, being in Winnipeg, I did a recording with the symphony here of a really nice work of another Canadian, Ray Ludiker.
Yeah.
It's called The Transparency of Time. Oh. and it's based on a poem by Pablo Neruda.
Oh,
it was his favorite. It was his favorite poet.
I will have to check
And
that out.
it's you check it out one day. I mean, it's a beautiful work.
Yeah.
He's so talented.
Before we wrap up, I just want to get to the master class that you're going to be doing on Sunday, on Valentine's Day, at Eckhardt-Gramatté Hall at the University of Winnipeg. Same place as you'll be performing between 11 and 1. And then again, that's on Sunday on Valentine's Day. It's $15 is the admission, but for members of the Manitoba Registered Music Teachers Association, it's only $5. And you're going to be working with a group of young, malleable pianists, I hear.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, young. I mean, it's very. I'm very interested to work with young people. Obviously, I mean, I have a small class at the conservatory in Montreal.
Yeah.
So it's something truly very interesting for me, and it's kind of fascinating to see them react. At the moment, and see some change, and I always succeed to at least pass a message or something about the character. But sometimes it's more or less technical. It depends on the help that they that they will need. But we go pretty quickly in music, and it's very interesting to see them react
and to grow.
I think I mean, you give them the idea, and I think it's funny, there is a maturity that comes with experience, but there's also an inane maturity, I think, with young people. And I don't think you necessarily have to be counting the years to be ready to understand some very deep thoughts and very deep ideas. And usually I have confidence in younger people, a lot of confidence that they can understand what I'm talking about sometimes. And I usually succeed, and they'll tend to work a little more. Yeah, if they feel that they have
it's always inspiring.
Confidence,
It's always inspiring to have somebody you admire give you that little bit of confidence.
Well, it's important.
Yeah,
I think it's important. I played for some people that I do admire a lot when I was young, and they did the same thing for me. So I.
Well, catch it on Sunday between 11 and 1 at Eckhardt-Gramatté Hall at the University of Winnipeg. Monsieur Laplante's master class with members of the Manitoba Registered Music Teachers Association. But first and foremost, check out his concert tomorrow night, 8 p.m. at Eckhardt-Gramatté Hall at the University of Winnipeg as part of the Virtuosi concert series. For more information, you can go to virtuosi.mb.ca or call their box office at 204-786-9000. Once again, 8 p.m. Eckhardt-Gramatté Hall at the U of W. Monsieur Laplante, it has been such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, and it's been a pleasure to meet you. We are going to play a morsel of chamber music from you, from Darius Milhaud, from his suite for violin, clarinet, and piano, with James Campbell on clarinet, Moshe Hammer playing the violin, of course you at the piano. The final movement, it'll be delicious and wonderful, I am sure.